Good morning to the universe out there and to Debbie De Grote. Debbie, we love having you on every couple of weeks. You've been fantastic for us in so many ways and sure appreciate you showing up again on this Friday. Want to welcome everyone who is joining us. Debbie, we've got a good group coming in, and so happy Friday to everybody out there. We've got another fun topic today, Debbie. This is one that's, again, relevant in today's world of real estate and everything that we're working on. So we'll get right into it. It's a fairly brief topic today. We've got, usually we overwhelm the group with a lot of slides, got a lot less slides today, but a lot of important topics to discuss. So it's all about finding the must-move sellers today. And at Landvoice, we're pretty passionate about that. We love talking about must-move sellers. And so that's the topic today. Debbie, I know there's a couple things we want to go through, just kind of an introductory slide or two. For those of you who are joining us, go ahead and chat in. Just make sure you can hear us okay. Let us know that. Let us know where you're listening from, and we'll go ahead and get started. So, Debbie, we always jump right into it. Let's get these slides moving. Now, this is kind of obligatory, right? Like we got to kind of talk about it every time. It's the DNC regulations. It's TCPA. When we talk about must-move sellers and people that are out there, we've got to honor the DNC. We've got to understand the regulations, the TCPA. And so our hope is anytime we talk about any type of training, the very first rule is, guys, honor the DNC rules, the regulations, and everything that's out there. Anything to add to that, Debbie?
I think in Landvoice, right, you guys have already scrubbed for this, correct? So when they're using your system and making their calls, they should be pretty good to go.
Really important for us, yeah. So we've spent a lot of money paying for what we call the National Do Not Call Registry file. It's not a cheap file for us to actually license and get from the government. There is an update that I want to tell everybody about. We just recently, over the last few years, a lot of states have started creating their own state DNC list. And so we just took steps this week. In fact, we took steps quite a few months ago, but some things have changed with some states, and we lost access to some of those licensing. So we'll be adding, not only we have currently a National Do Not Call Registry file that will protect you and will tell you which numbers are there, but we're now adding 13 states, and that should go live in the next couple of weeks to, again, protect you and these TCPA regulations that we talk about.
And, just quickly on this, not to beat it up, but just a quick thing that I've researched. Each state, I think, has a little bit different rules around if someone registers, how long is that good for? And does it auto-renew? Like in California, what I read is it's good for 5 years and it does not auto-renew. So as you're making your calls, there is very likely going to be a situation where someone might say, why are you calling me? I'm on the do not call list. And you're looking at this saying, well, wait a minute. No, they're not on the do not call list. And they just don't know. Either they hallucinated that they registered, they thought they did or should, or it's already expired and they don't know that it's expired. And I think, Ben asked me, what's a little scripting around that? And I think the first thing is don't argue with them. And if that bothers them, just get off the phone graciously. So I might say, well, Sean, my apologies if I dialed you incorrectly. I do respect the do not call lists and registration. Unfortunately, I did not see you registered on that list. Could be an error, could be your registration has expired, but I clearly understand you do not wish to be contacted, and I will end our call and I will not contact you again. And I, again, apologize for bothering you, right? So I do want to say, I do check that. I am careful. I did not see your name on that list. Could be an error or could be it's expired. You may want to check on that, but I will respect the fact that you do not wish to be contacted. I will not contact you again. Get off the phone, right? Move on. There's lots of fish in the sea. And the great thing is people that have engaged with you, that if you're using Brivity, and they're accessing their market reports and they're listing alerts and they're in your pond, they're engaged with you. So that they've given permission, your past clients that have given permission. So permission-based outreach, or respect, do not call. And the great news is, if you do want to go out and do some door knocking of these expireds or for sale by owners or absent, or other, types that are provided in Landvoice, there's no rule about door knocking unless it's in a gated community and you're not allowed in, right? So lots of opportunity, Sean.
Door knocking, mailing. We're working on some mailing types of new tools that we're going to make some announcements about shortly. So excited about a lot of those opportunities. Biggest thing is we just want to honor the DNC, and we hope that all of you will follow that. Debbie, really well said. I hope everybody took a couple of notes on numbers. Do fall off that at times, and we need to kind of explain that we try to do our best. And so thank you for covering that. Debbie, a lot of people know you already, but here's the quick background.
Yeah, I am here in Newport Beach, California, but I'm business partners and forward coaching here with Ben Kinney. So I have offices in Bellingham. We have a branch in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and we coach all across North America, including also Mexico. So we get around, and I love to say, because I really feel this way, that we coach some of the brightest and best in the industry, people like you who are looking to grow, innovate, and do new things. So it's always fun to be here with you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie. Appreciate that. Well, let's jump right into it. Debbie,
Sure.
What we talk a lot about is low inventory.
Yes.
In my market and in most markets, we've been experiencing low inventory for over a decade now. I remember talking about this in 2013 or 2014, right? As soon as all the short sales dried up, this low inventory issue has really been a bugaboo in our industry for quite some time, hasn't it?
It has. And I know there are pocket markets where we're starting to see more inventory across the country. There, like in Miami, I think condos, there's kind of a little bit of a pileup of condos. So there's pockets around the country where there is more inventory. But for the most part, it is still a low inventory market. And in fact, last year, transactions were 50% less than in a normal market year. Why? There are lots of buyers, but there just wasn't a lot of inventory. Now it's starting to loosen. And Ben Kinney predicts that we will see 5.5% interest this year. Be prepared. When that happens, you may see a surge, because there is some pent-up demand of people who have been wanting to move up, and they don't want to pay their higher rates, but it'll hit a threshold where they're going to go, okay, that's probably about as low as it's going to go. So we may see that improve a bit. Ben's prediction is it's going to be an improved year, not an easy year, but improved. And then the next couple of years ahead, a little better, right? So still going to be probably low inventory for most of you.
Why do we bring that up? Why do we bring up low inventory? Well, it's really important for us, Debbie, to get in front of the people with their hand in the air that need to sell now, right? And so that's what we want to talk about today is, where do we find that data? Where do we find that information? And what are some not only easy ways, but where's the low-hanging fruit that we should kind of put some of our focus, right?
Yeah, and on the financial distress, the notice of defaults and short sales especially, there's not a lot of short sales because, most of the notice of defaults, we coach people that work that segment, and they tell me that 50%, that those that they contact who are in foreclosure, most of them have close to 50% in equity. So they're not in default because they don't have equity. They're just in default for another reason. Now, Ben had said a while back, and this number may have changed because this has been a bit, 6-8 months, but that less than 0.54% of the homeowners in the country were in default. So it's a very small percentage. Many of those, of course, do cure that default. But I also noticed that there's not a lot of agents focused on this segment in this moment. And that's why it might be a good one for you to turn your eyes on, right, Sean? And they can get that information through Landvoice, right?
Yeah, we can. So we provide, so there's basically four statuses of a pre-foreclosure that you want to look at. There's a notice of default or a lis pendens, depending on whether you're in a judicial or non-judicial state. So Landvoice will provide that to you in your state, whether you are that judicial or non-judicial state. You'll see either lis pendens or notice of defaults. That's when the bank starts the foreclosure process. They file that notice of default and begin foreclosure. And that's when the clock starts counting. For those of you not familiar with foreclosure, one of the things the bank is obligated to do is then file what they call a notice of trustee sale or a notice of sale. Sometimes we hear notice of foreclosure sale, but one of those two things happen in your judicial and non-judicial states as well. And typically at that point, if you see that data in Landvoice, a notice of sale, notice of trustee sale, typically you're somewhere between 2 weeks and 6 weeks away from the auction. Now, there are ways to still list that home, delay the auction, and get it sold before that homeowner loses all their equity and destroys their credit. So, do we like working with notice of defaults and lis pendens? We do, because we think it's a great listing opportunity to help the seller, help the homeowner list and sell their home, save their credit, save their equity, and get them into that next home that will help them. So it's an opportunity for us to be just responsible in what we're trying to do and help a lot of these sellers and what I would call would-be sellers, right, Debbie?
Yeah, and the thing about it is if they don't want to sell and you give them options, ideas, connect them to a great lender, now you put them in your database, right? And you nurture that relationship for the future. Many of the people that I've coached over the years that work notice of defaults tell me that it's not always the best to jump on them as soon as that notice of default is filed, but to wait until it's a little closer to that auction, because A, they may cure it and then it's off the table, or B, their head's a little bit in the sand, they're kind of ignoring it, thinking they're going to figure it out. So they don't really take you serious until it starts to get a little bit closer to the wire. So you kind of have to find your process in all of this of what works best.
What we find at Landvoice that's very successful is very important is, one, this is an embarrassing situation. It's a stressful situation for the homeowner. And so it's not always the best thing to call or door knock or mail and say, hey, you're in foreclosure.
Right.
They know that, but they don't need a stranger to tell them that. And so we highly, highly recommend that if you do make contact with the homeowner, to treat them kind of like you do mostly like when you're calling or making contact or whatever you're doing, but that you treat it more like you've just listed a home in the neighborhood, if you have, or you've just sold a home in the neighborhood, and talk to them about the market and what's happening. And then ask the question if they've ever asked or ever thought about selling, and let them bring up the situation that they're in.
So you can say, I have cash investors, would like to purchase and close quickly. Because, even if you don't have one immediately in your pocket, I know your office does, your friends do. I mean, there's always cash investors out there. And that's often who buys these notice of defaults. Go ahead, Sean. Did you want
I want to say one more thing. I know we need to get to these other ones real quick, but here's the trends. Over the last 12 months, we've seen somewhere between 93,000 and 95,000 notice of defaults and lis pendens per month. So there's not a lot out there when you talk about 155 million single-family residential homes. 93 to 95,000 isn't a lot. Here's the other trend, though. One other thing that Landvoice is monitoring is something we call distress. These are homeowners that are in some type of financial duress. The bank hasn't started foreclosure yet. It's a new product that we're using to track homeowners that are in financial duress. We call it a distressed product. We see 1.5 million homes that are currently in some type of financial distress. They've missed a payment. They've lost a job. They've done something else. And so that's another product that you might want to kind of look at as far as specific data that could help you know homeowners that are kind of edging more and more towards some type of foreclosure process. So 93 to 95,000 per month, notice of default and lis pendens. About 1.5 million is what we're seeing in financial duress, and that's something we can help you with at Landvoice if you're interested. So,
and I want to acknowledge Amanda's comment here. Because Sean, I think everyone has to find their comfort zone for approach, right?
Yeah.
So just like with divorce, you wouldn't say, hey, I heard you filed for divorce, but you would do that
Yep.
circle prospecting or have buyers for the area. But with the notice of default, you can, I feel, go to them and address the fact that, I'm a real estate professional that has, a passion and empathy for helping those homeowners who find themselves in distress. And of course, if the home needs to be sold, I would be delighted to help you, but also just to talk through your options and see if there's a way we can save your home. Do you need some help? Would you like to talk to me? So most of the top notice of default agents, they may do some postcard mailing that might create a conversation, but often it's that door knocking. And it's just, very gracious to Amanda's point. And often these agents have themselves gone through distress, default, or short sale, and they can say, I've had this happen to me. And that therefore made me very passionate about helping homeowners in this situation. So I do think you can address it, but you may say, no, I'm not comfortable doing that. Then you go with what Sean recommended. You're just working the entire community, looking for great homes for your buyers, right? And are they interested?
Lots of really good options for sure. Job relocation. Debbie, let's talk about that for a
Yeah,
second.
we won't spend a ton of time on this because it's a little trickier. Like you could call companies in your local market, especially if you're in a little bit of a smaller community and have these mid-sized companies. You might even see, hey, do I know somebody who works in that company who can get me to the HR department and I could apply to be the person that they consider when they're moving people in and out. I have had coaching clients that part of their lead gen lever was to contact human resources departments and companies and apply to be on that list. Then also, sometimes it's more organic. I was thinking this the other day, Sean. I sold a house once. I was referred by a client to their friend who was moving into the area to take over running a hospital. He was a hospital administrator. So I got him into a pretty expensive home. And then I realized he's the guy that's recruiting all the incoming doctors or, supervising those that are moving away and are outbound. So I just simply said to him, would you consider allowing me to assist these doctors when they're selling and buying? He's like, yeah, sure, I'll introduce you. And so he did. And I did quite a number of transactions, and I wasn't paying like 35, 40%. I wasn't paying anything. He was just happy to have me helping make that process more efficient. So it could be a small company that happens to move people in and out, a mid-sized company, or it could just be organically, someone that's well connected and can get you introduced. So just think about it.
I hope everybody's taking notes. To me, that's one of the coolest niches in our industry is talking about job relocation, HR companies, and then sometimes even this network of doctors is really pretty powerful, Debbie.
Yeah, that's a good one. And military moves, it's just so common with military families that they have to move often. I know right now at Place and at Forward, we're doing a lot of work with Envoy Mortgage and with some of our agents that are themselves military and very passionate about this segment. So this would be something that I think is a little special passion. It also is often market driven, right? If there's a military base in your area and you just want to, decide how can I get involved there because there is a lot of turnover. Now, life changes, death and illness, then that would be like probate, right? Because probate filings, those show up through Landvoice, don't they, Sean?
Currently Landvoice does not have probate, but we're working behind the scenes, and stay
Oh,
tuned for
that's
some
right.
announcements in Q2 or Q3. Yeah, coming
Okay,
soon.
I knew the secret. It was coming. I let it out the bag. Coming soon, right?
That's
Coming
right.
soon. Now, in the meantime, you can do a little more work and, Google online, the probate court in your county,
Yep.
and probably find out, do they file them online? Do you have to go to the courthouse? So until Land Voice announces, a little bit of extra work, but you can find them.
Worth a visit to the courthouse for sure. That data is sitting there, and we can help you with finding that owner if there's a problem there for sure.
And then the want to sell sellers, right, Sean? The expired sell by owner.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. We talk about this a lot at Landvoice, both the expireds and FSBOs. Time's going fast, but let me just tell you a couple things. When we're talking about expireds, in some areas you might also want to consider withdrawals or canceleds, just depending on the area. And Debbie can talk to that a little bit. But the one thing that you want to kind of really remember about expireds is most of them happen on the last day or the first day of the month. And many of you are very consistent in working with expireds or FSBOs every day or throughout the week. But I just want many of you who aren't consistent yet, if there's one day you could pick of the month to work with expireds, it's that first day of the month. It's a really important day that you see most of them come onto the market that are expiring, that you want to reach out to a lot of these homeowners. So be mindful of that. We're walking into April 1st here in just a few days. And you'll see a very big spike as far as counts on how many expireds that are out there and available. So that's one thing to be mindful of. And then FSBOs. This is NAR. According to NAR, depending on the year, it's either 84 or 85%. But 84 or 85% of FSBOs list with an agent. The statistic that we oftentimes hear is 70% will list with the first agent that reaches out to that for sale by owner. So these are very large numbers of people that will eventually end up using a licensed professional like yourself, and we think that should be you. One other thing that we like at Landvoice is you're going to get new for sale by owner data and new expired data every morning that you can work with and leave notes and send mailers or whatever you're working to do. But we really like working with them because the money, and Debbie, you and I have talked about this a lot, is in the follow-up. And so don't be afraid to go back and look at an expired from a month ago or a FSBO from a month ago. You'll have a 6-month database, actually a 12-month database with FSBOs where you can go back and follow up with them a few weeks or a month or 2 months later when they're really probably ready at that point. Like, man, I tried this. It didn't work out for me. I probably need that licensed professional. And so we love both of these areas to kind of really be mindful and be looking at both expireds and for sale by owners. Landvoice can deliver those to you every morning before 8 a.m.
Yeah, and on the expireds, there's a stat I read once. I haven't verified it, but it makes sense. 90% will relist somewhere inside of 18 months, which is why it makes a lot of sense to create your own little expired farm where you're following up with those people. And on the for sale by owners, I've always been told that, and I think it's pretty true, that even if they do sell their property, 50% of those transactions will fall out, right? And you can imagine why, which is why if someone says, I've sold, I hope it goes well for you. May I check in with you in 2 to 3 weeks, right? So they're really, now, some of you are saying in your mind, but I have very few expireds or FSBOs in my market. But guess what? If you have very few, it actually makes it even easier to be intensely on top of those. And goodness, if you even just grabbed one a month of either one of those, added 12 listings a year, times your average commission, it's not bad, right? That's not bad. And sometimes when you're checking those expireds and for sale by owners, you're like, oh my goodness, I know that person, or that's my past client, or I sold that house when I had it listed when they bought it, which gives you a way in. So be sure you're checking those. Now, question, Pua, if there's a boarded up property, if ever you guys are like, hey, who owns that house? My go-to first and foremost would be probably the title company, right, Sean? Because title company now, if it's in an LLC, you may not be able to contact them. but that would be my first choice. Is I'd probably go to the title company. That's pretty quick and easy. Or tax records.
Debbie, something brand new that we haven't told a lot of people about. We launched another product last month called Data Genie, which will do this like the title company will for you. But we go through the tax records and we find out where is the owner, where do they live. So we'll find the owner for you. We'll standardize the address, and then we'll find that contact information for you. So call Landvoice, 888-678-0905. You can go to landvoice.com, talk to a member, one of our account executives, and they can help you find those owners of those boarded up properties, vacant land, whatever it is. We're here to help with that. So the title company will find you that address and that owner. We'll help you find all that contact information. Well, we'll help you do both, to be honest, right?
Very cool. Awesome.
I love what Craig just said. 50% of his listings come from expired. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, you probably want to type in who wants the phone number again, Sean.
Yeah, we can do that.
So networking, that's a great way. You can get in contact with probate attorneys, or you can get the information, directly from Landvoice and do both, right? Work both. Same thing with divorce filings, divorce attorneys, bankruptcy attorneys. There's a lot of retirement communities. The baby boomers are the biggest population that have ever existed on the planet in a particular age group. So you're seeing a lot of these retirement communities that then go into the assisted living or the full care. And the sales team in those places are very aggressive because there's big money in that. And my husband, in fact, for years, picked out different communities where he would go and introduce himself to the marketing team, which is really the sales team, and say, hey, here's a packet of how I can help these people transition, sell their home, make it easy, move into the community. They're like, great. We'll talk about it. Hey, will you come in and speak? And they would invite these potential new residents in for dinners, and he would go speak. So it's not a lot of rejection. They're absolutely anxious to have your help. So just remember, on your direct outreach and marketing strategies, it's targeted calling to qualified contacts. And I would also say strategically selected, right? Because you're going through Landvoice, they're scrubbing this for you, getting rid of the do not call, and they're providing you lists in the categories you choose. You can door knock, and the direct mail, which is part of the resource that you guys offer, right? Sean, ideas and samples and templates for that.
We do. We're working on an ebook right now for all of you guys. We'll make an announcement in a couple of weeks that will have some really cool templates for postcards, mailers, and some other door hanging type of assets. So we'll have that ready for you soon. One of the questions, Debbie, they're asking is, what's the best time to call? I know we're running short on time. I just got off a podcast with someone this week, and we'll be posting that on our Landvoice YouTube channel this Monday or Tuesday. But he is having really good success between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. and also between 5 and 6 p.m. I don't know what you hear from your customers or your clients, but curious if you have any feedback.
For 30 plus years, it's never really changed for me. As the 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., catching more at home, and then again at the end of the day. But then if I had to give a generic answer, it's when you do it.
That's right.
When you do it. And what's actually interesting is it's somewhere right around 17% connection, right? They monitor that in Brivity, and I've monitored that over the years. And it doesn't seem to make an enormous difference when you call, but I think energy and intensity, and of course, if I can stack the deck where I might get more people, I'm going to do that, right? And just remember, some of your past clients in Sphere, they may be a must-move seller. We often judge that. We often, think, well, gosh, that person's happy, and we don't know they're getting a divorce, or that someone in their family passed away, or that there's a job relocation. So when you're talking to your past clients in Sphere, it's important to graciously ask, I'm curious, what are your real estate related plans for the future? And Amanda, I want to address what you're saying. And I really so thank you for bringing this up. I don't want to call too early, or I don't want to call during supper. Amanda, that's your limiting belief, okay? Let it go to the clouds. Because What is too early? That's relative. Amanda, I'm up at 4:15. 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. is practically lunchtime for me. And most people that work, they're up, they're getting ready for work, they're getting kids off to school. When you think about dinner, what time do they eat dinner? Do they eat dinner between 5 and 6? Most, probably not. Kids getting home from work. I used to have one night a week where I would do additional lead follow-up calls between 7 and 8 p.m. Because here's the thing. If they really need your help, if they want your help, if they're motivated, they're more than happy to talk to you. If they don't need you, you're going to move on, right? So what is it that Ben has a quote? I just saw it the other day, that we often complicate things to avoid doing the activities we should do. So watch those stories in your head, right? Because you're right. It's just everybody's schedule's different. So if you guys need to talk to us, you're interested in hiring a coach, we would love to help you. Scan that QR code. No pressure here, no contract. We'll just have a great conversation. So Sean, thanks again for letting me be with everyone today.
Thanks as always. We'll love to see you again. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.